Hello everyone, welcome back to the Bilingual channel. I'm David, and today we're diving into a really interesting topic, powerful countries.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emily, and we're so glad you're here with us. Today, David and I will discuss the factors that make certain countries powerful on the global stage, like their economies, military strength, and influence.
Exactly, Emily. Now let's get started by explaining the first key term for today, superpower. This term refers to a nation that has a dominant position in the world, influencing other countries through its political, economic, and military strength.
Right, David. Historically, countries like the United States and the Soviet Union were considered superpowers, especially during the Cold War era. Today, the US remains a superpower, and China is often discussed as a rising superpower.
Yes, and superpowers typically have large economies, advanced military capabilities, and a significant role in international organizations. Now, Emily, let's talk about diplomacy.
Good idea. Diplomacy is the practice of managing international relations through negotiation and dialogue rather than conflict. It's crucial for powerful countries to engage in diplomacy to maintain peace and influence global issues.
Exactly, countries like the US, China, and Russia invest a lot in diplomacy to maintain their global standing and influence other nations. Diplomats work to build alliances, resolve conflicts, and negotiate trade agreements.
Speaking of influence, let's highlight the term soft power. Soft power refers to a country's ability to influence others through cultural appeal, values, and diplomacy rather than force.
That's right, Emily. For instance, the US exerts soft power through its movies, music, technology, and democratic values. Countries with strong soft power can shape global opinions and culture without military force.
Soft power is very different from hard power, which relies on economic and military might. Both types of power play a role in a country's global influence.
Great points. Another important factor in a powerful country's status is its economy. The size and stability of a country's economy greatly impact its ability to project power on a global scale.
Absolutely, David. Countries like the US, China, Japan, and Germany have some of the largest economies in the world, allowing them to invest in technology, infrastructure, and defense.
And speaking of defense, we can't ignore the role of military power. Military power, which includes a country's armed forces and weaponry, is a traditional measure of strength and security.
Yes, countries with powerful militaries, like the United States and Russia, can defend their interests and allies, and even intervene in conflicts around the world.
Military power also includes advanced technologies like drones, nuclear capabilities, and cyber defense systems. Now, another key concept is alliances.
Alliances are partnerships between countries to achieve mutual goals, such as defense or trade. For example, NATO is a powerful military alliance that includes the US, Canada, and many European countries.
Alliances help countries strengthen their positions globally by pooling resources and support. They can also deter potential conflicts by demonstrating unity.
That brings us to geopolitics, which is the study of how geographical factors influence political power. Geopolitics considers things like natural resources, location, and population.
Right, Emily. For example, countries with access to critical resources, like oil, often have more geopolitical power. Russia and Saudi Arabia, for instance, have significant influence due to their energy resources.
Exactly. And speaking of influence, let's talk about international organizations. These are groups of countries that work together to address global issues, like the United Nations and the World Trade Organization.
Yes, these organizations provide platforms for countries to collaborate on matters like peace, trade, and climate change. Powerful countries often have more influence within these organizations.
Let's not forget sanctions, which are penalties imposed by one country or a group of countries on another, often to change its behavior or policies.
That's right. Sanctions can impact a country's economy and are commonly used as a tool in international relations. The US and European Union often use sanctions to influence other nations.
Speaking of influence, another key term is hegemony. Hegemony is when one country has dominant influence over others, often in economic or political terms.
Yes, hegemony can be regional or global. For instance, the US has had a strong global hegemony in the post-World War II era, influencing economic systems and political ideologies worldwide.
Another term to understand is proxy wars. These are conflicts where two powerful countries support opposing sides, as seen during the Cold War between the US and the Soviet Union.
Good example, proxy wars allow powerful countries to extend their influence without directly engaging in conflict.
Let's also touch on emerging powers, which are countries that are growing in influence and could become superpowers in the future. China and India are often mentioned as emerging powers.
Emerging powers are characterized by rapid economic growth, technological advancements, and increasing political influence. Thanks, Emily. Let's continue with national security. National security involves a country's efforts to protect itself from external threats, including military and cyber threats.
Yes, and powerful countries often invest heavily in intelligence and defense to maintain their security.
Let's also explain sovereignty. Sovereignty means a country's right to govern itself without outside interference.
Sovereignty is a core principle in international relations, and powerful countries often emphasize their sovereignty in global discussions.
Another important term is foreign policy, which is a country's strategy for interacting with other nations to achieve its goals.
Foreign policy shapes how a country builds alliances, negotiates trade, and addresses conflicts. It's crucial for maintaining a country's influence.
And lastly, let's discuss trade agreements. These are formal deals between countries to facilitate trade by reducing tariffs and barriers.
Trade agreements strengthen economic ties, which can lead to greater influence and stability between nations.
We've covered a lot today, from superpowers and alliances to trade agreements and foreign policy. We hope you enjoyed this discussion.
Yes, thank you all for joining us on the Bilingual channel. Be sure to check the description for definitions of today's terms, and we'll see you in the next episode.